Ladies and gentlemen, the goal in your life is not to figure out how to be comfortable in your mental prisons, but to realize that you have the keys to set yourself free. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. This is Tim Shurr, and today I have some spectacular people on this program. I'm freaking out. We've got Mark Victor Hansen and we've got Crystal Hansen on here. Are you kidding me? Welcome to the program.
Oh, thank
Our great
you,
joy. Thank
Tim.
you.
We're so happy to be here with you.
Oh, I am so delighted that you are here with us. It's such an honor. I mean, you two are real inspirers and movers and shakers, and your new book, Ask, is extraordinary, and every single person on this planet should literally have a copy of it. It is that good. And so, yeah, it really, it goes to the heart of what we're talking about. So we're going to dive in. For those of you that don't know, which means you must have grown up on a different planet, but Mark Victor is one of the best-selling authors that have ever lived. And then, of course, he found what he refers to as his better spectacular half in Crystal. And together, they are the real thing. And so today we're going to dive into their mind. We're going to take a couple of laps into their genius minds and have some real fun with this. So, all right, question number one. If someone asked, what is the secret to success? What would you say?
What happened is that we've traveled through 80 countries and talked to wonderful people everywhere. And what we looked at is people that were talented, and most people have vastly more talent and genius than they know. People that were professional, people that were well-educated, people that were likable. But the difference between those who are also Rands and us who really fulfill their destiny is why we wrote the book, Ask, the bridge from your dreams to your destiny, because we think everyone's got destiny, but the destiny comes out of one journey and one only, and that is learning how to ask. And both of us looked at our own lives and said, wait a second, why did we make it when so many other people didn't? I came out of a blue-collar city. I had ill-educated parents or Danish immigrants that just didn't have a shot at education. I lived in Little Denmark, where I thought everybody went to the Danish Brotherhood. I didn't know. And, so the chance of me becoming world's best-selling author is pretty unlikely. And Crystal came out of a nowhere city also, both I states. Her from Idaho, and me from Illinois. She's one of 9. I'm one of 4 boys. And she's one of 9 kids, 3 and 5 boys. So I didn't do the numbers right, did I? 3 girls
6.
and 6 girls. And I know every one of them too. So the point is we learned that the difference is you got to master the fine art of asking, and that's what we'd like to talk about.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That is so good. So really, one of the secrets of success is to have the belief in yourself that you're actually worthy enough of asking. And then, of course, getting clear on what you want to ask. And so I guess the sequel book will be called Receive, right?
So I get something else in mind, but that's not a bad title.
Yeah.
So
that's
worthiness piece. Yeah, Tim. Oh, go ahead. What?
No, please. What were you going to say?
No, I was just going to say, so we write to that in the book, and we talk about the 7 roadblocks to asking. And what Mark and I discovered through all of our research with this book is that all of us have at least one of these roadblocks, if not more, inside of us that prevent us from asking for and getting what we want. And so
yes.
If you don't mind, I'll just go through them for a second.
Oh, I would love that.
Yeah. So first one is unworthiness, which is just conditioning from our childhood that kind of has us feeling at this underlying level that we don't deserve better. Next one is naivete, which is really just a lack of awareness of what is possible. And I use this example in the book. I write about this Filipino lady who used to work for us when our children were very small. And she would come and she'd make all these wonderful dishes for us from her home country. And one morning she shows up with this fruit and she cut it off on a plate and said, Crystal, taste this, it's so good. And it was this juicy orange fruit. And I tasted it. I was like, Melda, what is this?
Mm-hmm.
She goes, it's mango. And I'm like, mango? How come I've never tasted mango? This is the best thing I've ever tasted. And she goes, I was like, where did you get this? Thinking she imported it from the Philippines. And she goes, at the grocery store.
Yeah.
And I was like, you're kidding me. This is at the grocery store and I've been passing it by every day. And that's the point. Like, I started thinking to myself, what other things am I missing in life just because I'm not even aware that they're there for me? What other people am I missing? Who am I not noticing? What experiences, opportunities am I missing? And that's the part about the naivety roadblock to asking. It has to do with a curiosity for life, because all of our experiences are limited in some way. So if we don't rekindle this curiosity to really learn more and embrace everything through asking, then it just cuts us off from our opportunities. The next one is doubt, the next roadblock. And that is just, through our experiences, just doubting that anything good can come from asking. And so we just hold back and don't do it. We have some great stories that exemplify each one of these. The next one is excuses. We actually used Mark's brother as an example in the book for this story, because there are just some of those people that make excuses all the time for never asking for help under any circumstances, never asking for anything. They're too stubborn, too proud. And he was one of those people, and he put himself in so many difficult situations, situations that caused him so much pain, anguish. He could have avoided all of this if he had just had the willingness to open up and ask and let other people be a resource to him. And I won't go into that story right now, but then there's the next one is just fear, like the sheer terror of being rejected. And that really comes from, I think, as human beings, we all have this deep need to be loved, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so rejection feels like, like love or approval is being taken away from us. So instead of having to feel that scary potential feeling, we are just so terrified to ask that we just won't even do it, thereby limiting so much of what might come if we can overcome that roadblock and just start asking. And then the last two are pattern paralysis, which is just like getting stuck in your own pattern and never even questioning it. So many of us do that too. We get stuck in the same old thing, never getting, nothing different happens because we never break out of the pattern. And then the last one is disconnection. And for me, that is the saddest one of all, because it's when you disconnect from the dreams in your heart, that's really sad. You've basically kind of become apathetic and you're sort of giving up on all those potentials that you have. Those are all seated in your heart. And if you disconnect from those because you're too scared or all these things, you are giving up so much. So we really encourage everybody to look at those 7 roadblocks and say, which one of these or which ones of these fit me? Because I promise you, everyone has at least one of those.
Oh, yeah. That was beautiful, Crystal. You really nailed the 7 of them. I mean, those are really good. I've studied unconscious programming for the last 30 years, and I think the reason why there's so much of what drives all 7 of those behaviors is the fear of not being good enough and then not loving ourselves. So we go out and try to get others to love us, but we're skipping that first step of learning to love ourselves, learning to know that we're okay, that we can accept ourselves. We're always trying to get it from out there when we really need to learn how to give it in here. And so those stumbling blocks that you named, every single one of them, everybody can be like, yep, I've been there. Yeah, I've been there. So that's powerful, because you can identify with that, and that's exciting. Yeah.
And that's why everyone's got to say like 50 times a day, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough, until you start feeling enough, because you got to be enough for yourself so you can be enough for another, enough for somebody else, enough.
Yes.
And it's so amazing that this first one of unworthiness, we got a great story we can go into if you want about Bob Proctor, but we're being interviewed by one of our close friends who's a billionaire here who owns the biggest real estate company. And he hired me 40 years ago and now again. And he said, I never understood until you guys wrote to that. And I read it in the book. I got it for the first time. He said, I'm in 8th grade. And now he's a skinny beanpole because he exercises every day and he's my age and all that. But yes. He said, I used to weigh 200 pounds in 8th grade. I wanted to take the girl next door to prom. And my dad, I told him, and that was a mistake. And he said, every day my dad said, well, did you call her? And he said, the phone got so big and so red and so demoniacal looking, I could not dial it. And I wanted to ask her, but I just didn't have the self-worth. And he said, then my dad said, well, asked me, son, did you call the girl next door? And he said, yeah, but she's going out with a football player. And he said, the terrible thing about having unworthiness is that I didn't ask her. She would have gone with me, she told me later. And number two is I lied to my father, all because my own self-worth wasn't there. That's why you got to say, I'm enough, I'm enough, I'm enough. And build yourself up to being enough, because the world conspires against us to not be enough with every commercial, every TV. And we're saying now, you got to ask yourself, are you willing to shut off all that negative news, because we're all sequestered and in lockdown, different levels at different places. But you got to watch it and tune into shows like yours, positive books, tapes, videos, to really get it so people learn how to ask.
Yeah, you are really striking a nerve. I mean, this is a time in our humankind, our landscape, where we need this kind of emotional intelligence training more than ever. You know, people need to know that you have to start, like what you said, with being worthy. All the other things, you know, fear, rejection, everything else will stem from that core fear of I'm not worthy and I'm not enough. Right. And so I can't have what I want, or I won't get what I want, or I'll be disappointed, or what's the catch? And so they don't ask. And so, you know, you're changing that model around. You know, we're going to start with, you know, being worthy. We're going to start with loving ourselves. Most people think that I got to accomplish all these things. I've got to do all these things, and then I'll be worthy. You're reversing the model. You're saying, no, we're going to start with worthiness.
You're worthy right now, 100%.
That's exactly right.
Oh, sorry, honey.
No,
and we give everyone full permission with Tim. So the three of us are saying, hey, look, you're 100% worthy. Start at worthy. Don't go to worthy. You can't get there. You got to be, you know, that's why the law is be, do, have. Everyone says, well, when I get that car, then everyone will know I was. No. That's the end. Right. Where you got to start is the beingness. You got to be it before you can do it, before you can have it. And you got to ask yourself, because what we're teaching in the book, there's 3 levels of ask. Ask yourself, ask others, and ask God. And you say, well, wow, that's really simple. It is simple. But when I went bankrupt in 1974, I was trying to be my teacher, Buckminster Fuller, and I built the Wall Street Racket Club, Botanical Gardens, aviaries. I'm 26, and I'm a hotshot. And I was building out of plastic when the Arabs said, we can write checks so big your banks bounce. And I crashed and burned so fast I had to check a book at the library, How to Go Bankrupt by Yourself, which long-term was my best, worst experience. Right. Short-term, I asked myself, what do I want to do? And I said, I want to talk to people that care about things that matter, that would make a life-changing difference. And I was sleeping in a sleeping bag in front of another guy's bedroom. And then I'm in Hicksville, Long Island, New York. And I go to my 3 roommates at the time. And I say, any of you guys know a young speaker that is not a cotton top, white hair like me, not famous, not a doctor, not a lawyer, or something else? The guy said, yeah, here's a ticket to go out. This guy, Chip Collins, will wow you. He mesmerized me for 3 hours, at the end of which I went up. I said, Chip, can I ask you to lunch? I'll buy, but I want to ask you, how do you do this crazy business? He was a few years older. He'd been the #1 salesman at Kodak, failed in the beginning and then made it. And he told me, he said, look, kid, making it's 1 in 1,000. Chance you make it, it's almost 0. I'll tell you what to do. If you'll stay in the life insurance business, because it's the bottomless pit for motivation, and I'm staying in the real estate business. And by the way, I'm leaving for 2 weeks. I won't be here when you come back. But by the time he came back, I did it. And only Tony Robbins and I, as far as I know, I don't know your track record, but we did 1,000 talks a year the first 3 years. I'd be talking at 6 in the morning, 10, 2, 9, and in between I'd be selling seminars. There's nothing else to do, you know, because I believe it's the quantity of service plus the quality, with a positive mental attitude that equals, where you're feeling good about yourself, equals unlimited compensation.
That's extraordinary, Mark. That's extraordinary. 1,000 talks in a year. Yeah, you got to measure that by, you know, the times where you weren't talking. It'll be easier.
By the way, the good and bad news is my mother was a great storyteller. I learned it from her. And she said, son, you're not only a share boy, but you enter every subject with an open mouth.
A share boy.
That's awesome. And the good news about that is that when I was with Jack and now I'm with Crystal, is that, you know, they chip out all the stuff that I shouldn't be saying and saying, I think you to get your highway back.
Refinement.
Yes, I understand that completely. Yes. Wow, that's powerful. So, all right, you answered so many of my questions already in the stories that you shared. So, is there something that you do every day that brings you more fulfillment? I know you're promoting your book right now. Is this what's doing it for you, or what creates fulfillment for you where you're at right now in life?
Well, for us, I think, we always start our day with prayer and meditation. It's our time of the day where we sort of set the architecture for that day, and then thereby setting it for our life. And that's such an important part of our day because it gives us the time, it allows us the time to do what we're saying. We do that reflective questioning, what do we like about what we're doing? What's working? What's not working? Are we on focus? Are we staying on our passionate purpose for which we were made? All of these questions that we need to ask and answer every day so that we stay in our purpose and stay on track. And so by doing that, we tend to gravitate toward the things that are very rewarding for us. And right now, one of those, there was the decision to write this book because as Mark and I started talking about it, we realized that, everybody, like he was saying, is over-endowed. Everybody has more talent than they'll ever use in a lifetime. But the difference between people who are massively successful and those who are falling short a little bit of what they really want is if it comes down to one really major thing, one simple thing, it's the ability to ask. And so that became really exciting for us to share. And then as we sort of peeled back our own personal lives, we said, well, how did that asking journey really help us? And when we peeled it apart, we realized at the worst times, at the times of crisis in our own lives, it was the questions that we asked ourselves that led us to that next step and out of that crisis into something that was so much better. So that's what excites us every day. And now to be able to share that, it's been great because we released this book in the middle of a pandemic, not
a crisis,
not exactly what you planned. But, when we talked to our publisher, we said, what do you want to do? Everyone's postponing their books, canceling. We all came to this conclusion, you know what, let's go for it. We all felt like it was the right thing to do, to go ahead and release this book, go ahead, because the message was so important, because we were all in this great place of uncertainty. And as it turns out, we feel like we were really guided in the right direction to do that, because so often on these podcasts we're doing every single day, we're being told that, gosh, this is exactly what I needed for this particular time. So we are really thankful for that. It's really inspiring us to great levels. And we get to talk to great people like you, Tim, every day.
Thank you. That's a beautiful answer. So let me ask you then, what do you say to people who are saying, Crystal, Mark, I'm asking all the time. I'm asking, I'm praying to God for what I want. I'm asking, I'm telling myself I'm deserving of this. I'm writing affirmations. I've got vision boards. I'm asking, but it just doesn't feel like my big break is happening. And I don't know why. How do you respond?
So we say you got to prepare to be a good asker, and that has three parts to it. First of all, you got to have the belief and to trust that there's an answer. So you're asking, but are you asking right? And I'm going to go how to do that deep in a second. Number two is you got to visualize to realize. I did a whole audio series on this, but you live in the pictures in your mind. Your mind is 87% visual. And when Jack and I interviewed all the 101 best authors of best-selling books, I didn't ask how to write. I know how to write. I said, how did you market so many books? And then we interviewed Scott Peck, and Scott Peck, Dr. Peck had written A Road Less Traveled, and I whited out his name on New York Times because he'd been 58 weeks, number one New York Times. I put Jack and Mark there and Chicken Soup for the Soul. And then we put it on the mirror at my office, Jack's office, my house, Jack's house. And then you got to take massive action. And you got to do something that nobody else does. And in the Hansen family of companies and all the books that we write, we have three principles that are ironclad about this belief. It's got to be unique. It's got to be transformational. And it has to be inevitable. Now, unique. This book is unique. You've never seen a pink covered book with a yellow sign with one word on it, ask with an exclamation mark. The bridge brings your destiny, because what she's saying is everyone has a destiny. So these people are saying, how do I get to my destiny? So let's just go to the ask God part. You got to do it 400 times before you go to bed. God, what's your destiny for me? And that's what Jack and I did. mega bestseller, mega bestseller, mega bestseller. 2:30 in the morning, years ago, Jack calls me up and says, chicken soup. I said, for the soul, we got goosebumps, God bumps, chili bumps. We knew we had it. Likewise, they got to say, look, God, I'm asking you, what's my destiny now? What's my destiny now? What's my destiny now? Who am I supposed to talk to? Who am I supposed to talk to? But you got to do 400 times because this over-endowed brain, decision is made in consciousness, imploded into the subconscious, makes provision. But you got 18 billion brain cells, and it takes a while to go there. And what Crystal's saying, when you're preparing to be a good asker, the minute you ask that question, you get illumination, revelation, solution, insight, wisdom, and it starts to pop on, put electromagnetics in your brain, and it goes like this. So we asked God what we were supposed to write, and God said, you're supposed to write ask. And then we finished all the research, all the science, and she'll talk to you about that if you want. But then we said, well, wait a second. We know all these magnificent human beings that, remember, the difference between little success and massive success is one thing only, asking. We said, let's go ask the greatest askers ever in all these dimensions, and all of them had the same answer. Asking is the answer.
Ask and ye shall receive.
Bingo.
Yeah. Wow. That's brilliant. So I love that. Wow. There was so much. My brain just going. So I love it. I love it. So, so people are like, a lot of times I get asked, how many times do I have to do this? Right? Because people have this idea in their head that it's going to be so much work. Well, you just gave them the answer 400 times. I always say until it works, right? And so, of course, I'm upgrading beliefs that are driving a lot of that thinking, because they can sometimes say it hundreds of times and still not believe it or have a values conflict because of some trauma that they've had when they were little that they don't even think about anymore, and it's in there still messing with them. Yep. And so it comes back to the worthiness that or unworthiness that Crystal, you started off with. So, but I love that, because what you're saying is you've got to really take it and just pound it in to your brain and make it your reality. Whether you're seeing it on the wall or you're writing checks to yourself from the universe or you're putting bestseller, that it has to become who you are. It can't just be something that you do, throw it against the wall, see if it sticks. Right. It has to be something that this is my mission statement for my life. I'm walking the talk and having faith that this is going to happen and unfold, even when I have no idea how exactly that's going to happen.
Right. And that also means you have to put your asking journey into action. That's part of preparing to be a good asker. You can't just, you have to visualize, you have to believe, and you have to visualize, and you want to visualize with great feeling. Try to get your emotions into it. Like if you want to make the greatest sale ever, when you do your visualization, be at that place where you're celebrating, toasting with a glass of champagne, that the two of you are so happy that you just consummated this sale, it worked out for everybody, or you just signed the greatest salesperson to be with your company. Whatever it is, go to the nth degree of exactly what you want, and then engineer it backwards from your visualization with feelings, with emotions, because the feelings are really what will take it to the maximum limit. And if you don't have those feelings, your left brain is going to sit there and go, oh, you can't do that. This is why this isn't going to work out. This is why that's not going to work. Write it, do your visualization like you're in this epic movie and it's about your life, and just go for it and keep repeating it again and again. There's nothing to stop you from doing that. And when you do it, you just start to see things shift. But at the same time, you do have to take action. You have to get your asking journey into action. You can't just do all this and then sit on the couch and wait for things to happen. You need to literally put yourself out in that quantum soup of things area you want to be in, whatever that is. And as you do your asking journey, you ask a question, you get a solution, ask another question, you get an illumination or some kind of response. Then you need to take action on that. Do I need to call that person? God gives us answers all the time, like things that just come our way. And a lot of times we go, oh, that's not anything big. No, it's big. Act on it. It's a clue. This is the support. God's perfect universe. It's orchestrated to help you. But, you asked, and you need to take action. Take every action you can that you can think of that comes to you, because sometimes those are answers. If you don't act upon them, nothing will happen, right?
Yes, absolutely. Doesn't it seem like the more you act on those clues, the more of them God gives you? Yes, because now it's like you're listening. God's going, great, you're listening. Let's have some fun, Yeah. Let's do it. Let's do this.
And it is fun. Life becomes so much more fun when you enter sort of this dynamic exchange with God and realize that's why the asking God is so important. And I love, like, my favorite question is, you know, what is my greatest expression that I'm here for, that you made me for, you know? And when we start to do that, it kind of puts everything, pulls the camera back and puts it in a bigger context of, you know, it's not just about me. It's just, it's actually something bigger than that. Whatever I'm doing, there's going to be a bigger picture to that. How can we serve? Like, when you think about what Mark's done with these books, it wasn't just a book that he had a lot of success with. Millions upon millions of lives have been dramatically changed through that book. And so everything we do, big or small, can have a very significant impact if we're willing to ask that question about how that fits in sort of the kingdom purpose, you know, the universal purpose, sort of.
I like that, the kingdom purpose. So we're gonna ask, we're gonna make sure our beliefs are in alignment with our goals. We're going to use feelization. So you're imagining yourself, not just visualizing, but you're feeling it and creating that emotion. It becomes the rocket fuel that drives you into taking more action on the clues God gives you. And then because it's no longer about you anymore, it's about the service that you're providing. You know, I always tell people that the more value you bring, the more valuable you become, right? And so, and then from there, you're just enjoying the ride and filling your life with, you know, with jubilation and doing your kingdom work. I really like that word, you know, the kingdom work. And then every day, I mean, we have our bumps in the road. We're human. We're going to go through it, right? But most of the time, you're going through it with a smile on your face, enjoying the ride.
Exactly. And that's our publisher called at the beginning of this. A book came out, this wonderful book came out April 28th, the height of COVID. And he called us with sort of trepidation in his heart and says, hey, do you want to wait until October to bring it out? And we go, no. My whole life has been take adversity, turn into advantage. Take adversity, turn into opportunity. And back to what you said about the kingdom is in the beginning of Genesis, what it says is what you meant for my harm, God meant for my good. So I said, well, he said, well, what are you going to do? I said, I'm not sure yet, but within a day we asked ourselves, what do we do? What do we do? And I said, podcasting. And what we're doing is podcasting. We're told that we're the king and queen of podcasts now because in the last month, we've gone from no podcast to doing 4 or 5 a day. Like we just got off one in Europe a few minutes ago with thousands of people at the S Group. The other day we started with 2 in America, 1 in Canada, 1 in Ireland. And then the 5th one was with 10 million people in Vietnam. Now, my book that I wrote 20 years ago, 1 Minute Millionaire, is the #1 bestseller in Vietnam. And we've been there the last 2 years. I've had 75 grand to talk. And it's magnificent because I'm trying to get rid of communism because I find it abhorrent to my mind that anyone gets oppressed or suppressed or depressed that way, and wake them up to free enterprise. Because my daddy taught the more enterprising you are, the freer you are. So we asked, how do we do all this? And so ask is just one step in the journey for us. We've got this magnificent long-term plan. And most of you out there need to be asking yourself, what is it that I can do now? But what is it I can do? What is my 5-year goal, 10-year goal? And if you've never written 100-year goals, you need to get on the program because the Chinese have 1,000-year goals and most Americans, the goal is, what am I going to do after lunch? Not a very good ask, right? I can tell you all the 10 things I want to do 100 years out.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So there are big thinkers and then there's Mark.
Can I get that in writing, Tim?
Yeah. I'm happy to put that in writing. Yeah. I mean, I'll print you out a certificate and everything. That is amazing. I mean, really, wow. I got goosebumps thinking about that. Cause you're right. People think very small and you're thinking, big. I had a woman tell me one time, she says, Tim, I hear you think outside the box. And I said, yeah. She says, I think outside that one. And I thought maybe that's a little too far because she was a little far out, right? But the way that you're describing it is thrilling, right? It's like you have so much potential, so much flowing through. You've got the same stuff that fuels the sun fueling you. And you're going to pretend that you're this big? You've got the power of the universe. And oh my gosh, this Ask book, ladies and gentlemen, get this book, read it, put it on your nightstand. You look at it every single day. There we go. Ask. We're going to have to put that in the show notes. So, all right. So now let me ask you, let me switch gears a little bit.
Sure.
Okay. with all the success that you've had and all the things that you've accomplished and all the accolades and everything, do you still ever get scared? And if so, how do you handle it?
I think everybody gets scared, and you get scared in the middle of the night. And by the way, I'm not scared right now for me, because look, I've got the best wife for me in the world. We've got an extraordinary home. We've got an extraordinary life. We've got phenomenal 5 kids and their spouses, and then 6 grandkids, and they'll probably go to 12 grandkids because some of them are still in that age group. And we're very, very thankful. But I'm scared for the world, because we got people working against us right now that I'm not okay with. That people that are trying to keep America shut down, and America's got to open up. We've got one kid that's going to university at Ole Miss, and she's uncertain, and you know, the university won't open up. And I'm going, wait a second. Look, we got this thing. We're going to live with it. We know that if you take some of the, she happens to be a nutritionist, is one of her many, many degrees. You know, if you're doing stuff like taking zinc, you know, it makes your cells strong inside, and virus can't go in. But the medical community makes no money with doing herbals and medicinals that are not sold at a pharmaceutical where they get a spiff. So I'm saying, hey, wait a second, you got to wake up to some of the solutions so you stay healthy, whole, complete. You exercise every day, you sleep right, and you get over being scared, because I am scared literally for the world. Like yesterday, we're doing some big work on podcasting in Australia, and they're not allowing one flight to come in or out of Australia until January 2nd, 2020.
Wow.
Well, understand, depressions are caused first by fear, second by shutting down the economy. If you put a tourniquet on your arm, it doesn't matter whether you're white or black or red or yellow, you are going to have your arm fall off if we don't take the tourniquet off. We now have a tourniquet on our economics, and it's not okay with me. And yes, I'm very proud of American. I am very proud of free enterprise. I'm very proud of what can happen. And you know, I've written a book now that says we're going to do 50 trillion in this decade if we just open up. And it's wonderful, because we're part of breakthrough businesses like turning trash into cash, which we can talk about if you're interested.
I'm interested in everything you're doing. Yeah, good for you. Crystal, what would you say to that?
So, yeah, I think probably my biggest fear right now is some of the challenges that we're seeing right now that we've never had to deal with. And, you know, sort of the interest behind some of the challenges. I think what I'm scared of is that our world has become very politicized, very polarized, and I don't think that's good for humanity in any way at all. It's really counterproductive. And I think fear and anger are very low vibrational qualities. They don't produce anything good. If you've studied David Hawkins' work, Dr. David Hawkins' Power versus Force, you know, if we descend to this very primitive place where we were back when we were cavemen, that's not cavemen and women, that's not going to be good for anyone. So it's, you know, when you see kind of this craziness happening that's never happened before, and the rationality behind it, you really have to say, you know, we ask ourselves, what can I do? God, what is my role in this? How can I help in some positive, productive way? And I think the more we stay in our light, the more we stay in productivity, the more we embrace the higher values, those higher values as you get up, you know, Maslow's hierarchy. You know, we don't want to descend down to this primitive level of being, this tribal level. We need to go back up to higher levels of being, back to truth and beauty, because we're not in a lot of truth right now. There's, you know, just a lot of political positioning on both sides, and it leads to no good at all. So, yeah, I think as Mark and I realize that we have to be the best we can be, we need to focus on being our best internally, spreading light and love and good news, and also the practical side of what opportunities are coming. There's, like Mark was saying, there's always the inverse size of opportunity to the disaster or to the catastrophe. And, you know, we've learned a lot through this whole virus thing. We learned that, who knew before that 98% or 99% of all of our pharmaceuticals, our medicines were coming from China, all of our health supplies, you know, things that we rely on for life and death. And so pretty much the entire country is on board saying we need to take control of that. That's really good news for our country. It's going to open up tons of opportunity in terms of manufacturing, all kinds of manufacturing, supply chain opportunities, all kinds of things like that. So we should be focusing on that. So many of us could participate in that. if we're awake and open to that. If we keep taking our cues from what's going on, the chaos outside, we'll lose our creativity, we'll lose our light, we'll lose our positive thinking. So what I say, you know, as a transformational life coach and clinical hypnotherapist, while it appears that your life is happening to you from the outside, the reality is our life experience is created from the inside out. It truly is. How you experience life is created from the inside. And so if we remember that every day, and remember to turn that off and stop spending so much time listening to bad news and negative news, because it's like you're hypnotizing yourself for exactly what you don't want. Yeah. Exactly the opposite. It's the opposite of what you want to feel and experience. So, and take the time to listen to things, read great books that will uplift you, listen to positive things, and start to do research on how you can participate in all of these tremendous opportunities that are coming our way. And spend time with yourself in the morning, going through these questions, asking yourself, asking others, ask God, write down those answers and track your asking journey so that you can see it start to unfold. You can see opportunities start to unfold right before your eyes.
Wow. Two very strong answers. I love that. So let me just review it real quick, because there was so much good content there. So Mark, you're saying control what you can, right? Take charge of the things you can control, even if it's taking your vitamins. That's something you can do. Makes you feel safe when you feel like there's something you can control.
You got to do simple things like vitamin D. And if you're not getting out in sunshine, go get a vitamin D. It's cheap at whether you get it at a pharmacy, health food store. I haven't got a vested interest. But you got to have vitamin D to stay strong. And you got to, if you got diabetes, there's a lot of ways to get rid of it today. You got to get rid of it because 70% of the people that got COVID-19 have diabetes. So, by the way, ergo, you know, like we love Walmart and we say, get our book at walmart.com if you want, or amazon.com, but you better not be sitting in one of those scooters weighing in at 500 pounds. You better be starting to take care of yourself and doing, I don't care if you do light weights or resistance or what you got to do, but do some aerobics and anaerobic exercise.
That comes back to the worthiness again, you know, and those limiting beliefs that you would help people shift, you know, as a hypnotherapist. And so, and then what you said, Crystal, which I love, is that life balances. So yeah, we've had some bad things that happen, but we also have a lot of good that is going to come from this as well. You know, I also live in an I place. I live in Indiana, you know, and so I have a lot of farmers, and my birthday is April 27th. So your book came out. I just know this, you know, it's all falling into place. That's right. Synergy, right? So I grew up with a lot of farmers, right? And farmers know that things grow best in manure. So I've learned to take the crap of my past and use it to grow my future.
I love that. Oh, I love that.
Well, let me hitchhike it, Tim. And if they go to my website, we get a different book for them, but where the 50 trillion we're going to do this decade. But there's this company where a guy spent $300 million in Michigan, not far from you. And for 20 years, he's figured out how to turn, I'm writing the forward to it, but trash to cash. We can take every atom and every molecule of plastic and clean up the world. We can take every atom, a molecule of metal and glass and water for the first time ever. But the governor there is a little resistant to letting people work, including farmers, which absolutely makes no sense to me, because a farmer's out on his tractor and the tractors are air conditioned and safe. I mean, because, you know,
farming's come a come a long
way. And they got nice sound systems, so they listen.
Yeah, they're watching Netflix while it's on autopilot.
Yeah.
I didn't know that, but yeah, good.
Wow, that's amazing. So, all right. So I have a question for you. So, what's some of the best advice you were ever given?
So ever given, wow, I gotta think about that for a minute. Gosh, my dad gave me so much advice, so much good advice. I mean, I'm really thankful for my dad. I'm thankful for both of my parents. They both, for my mother, I would say the best advice my mother gave me was she just gave us this legacy of great health. And there's a story about that. When I was born, she had a grand mal seizure when she was pregnant with me, but it led us down this path of, you know, total natural health and wellness, which just became part of who I was. My mom was doing juice cleanses and organic gardens long before they were chic.
Wow, that's impressive. Yeah.
So that was a really instrumental part of my life. But my dad just always had this belief that you can be or do anything. And he really made me believe that, because he believed it, and him telling me that and giving me that strength and to go for anything I wanted to do because I could do it. And so I'm very grateful. Those are the two, I would say the best advice came from my parents, thankfully.
That is so good. You know, I like to say this whenever the opportunity came up, and you just set it up, Crystal, that, you know, sometimes in life, you just need one person to believe in you so that you can believe in yourself. And so for everybody that's listening to this or watching this right now, you know, Crystal believes in you. Mark believes in you. I believe in you. Now it's time for you to believe in you.
Bingo.
So,
Amen.
yeah. So as you were going through your life, this is a question that my wife asked, and she said, why don't you ask him this one? I thought that's a great question. Have you ever had an aha moment or an experience that maybe was traumatic that helped informing you to become the person that you are today?
I think you have to do the one about baby.
We both have. I mean, you know, but the one that comes to mind for me is, yes, when I was at a very young age, one of my most traumatic times and biggest changes, the most pivotal times in my life was high school was easy for me. So at age 16, I advanced my curriculum and graduated at age 16, married a guy 5 years older than I was. Mm-hmm. Not a great life plan. So 2.5 years later, I'm divorced with a baby on my hip, in a new city, no friends, no family, and no idea what I was going to do for work. Yeah. So I did the only thing I could think of, and that was to apply for food stamps. Mm-hmm. So the first day, I remember getting those food stamps, going to the grocery store, standing in line, getting ready to turn those over, and all of a sudden this question just landed in my mind. First of all, it was, how did I get here? And the second question that followed it was, are you really doing everything you can to get out of this, or are you taking the easy way out?
Ooh, great question.
Yeah, and it really it was like a light was shining on my head. That question was so intense, and I was like, I knew the answer. I knew I wasn't doing everything I could to get out of this. And so I felt like this moment of truth where literally, and it was like time slowed down, but this had to have happened in just a second. Mm-hmm. As I was handing over those food stamps, I was saying in my mind, I didn't say it out loud, but I felt like it. I was like, this will not be my future. Mm-hmm. And I went home. I don't even think I used the rest of the food stamps. Because I said, this will not be me. This is not my future. So I didn't have any answers, but all I had was questions. And so I started asking myself a lot of questions. How do I make money tomorrow? Well, I had heard on the radio about temporary service agencies, Kelly Girls, you know. So I called, I applied. They would call me and give me a choice of jobs, and I could say yes or no. Mm-hmm. And started working at attorneys' offices and, you know, setting up booths at malls and, you know, working at sales for conventions that came through town. And I started learning a lot about myself. I learned that I really was pretty good at business and sales, and that I love people. I love working with people. And so that led me to going to real estate school, getting my real estate license. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, someone had approached me and said, you should do some modeling. So I approached the biggest modeling agency in our city and said, you know, would you sign me? I asked them. Mm-hmm. And they said yes. So I ended up doing a couple of television commercials, which luckily went national. So I was getting residuals. So literally,
that's hard to do.
It is hard. It's hard. And, you know, I'm just very grateful for this journey. And I just feel so blessed because a year and a half from that time that I was turning over those food stamps for my groceries, I was now working for the largest home building company in our valley, selling real estate. I became the #1 realtor. Wow. And I was getting these residuals, which allowed me to get Screen Actors Guild benefits to pay for all of my son's insurance. Yeah. So it was like my life pivoted 180 degrees. But I often thought back about that, like, what if I hadn't asked those questions? What if those questions hadn't come to my mind? And probably even more importantly, what if I hadn't been honest enough to answer them honestly? You know, like, are you doing everything you can to get out of this? And I knew that I wasn't. It was like I couldn't escape the truth. But I'm so thankful for that realization. That was such a life-changing thing for me. And I've thought about it many times in my life. It really revectored my life completely. So.
That's awesome. So, Crystal, I can't think of a better story and proof or evidence for change your questions, change your life.
Yeah.
You know, the quality of the questions you ask yourself determine the quality of your life. And that was a powerful question that, I mean, that one question can completely change your life and the life for your kids and your grandkids. It's so powerful.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ray, for asking that great question. And add to what you just said, I wrote the size of your question determines the size of your result.
Of course, because you think outside the box. You can't even see the box right now.
No, I can't. And it's not magical because back to what you said when we were on that question like 7 questions ago, was it she's just discovered one of my heroes and her dad's heroes, Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph said, have dreams in the sky, but make sure you got a good foundation under them. And that's what we're doing. We're building, you know, the Hansen family of companies really want to make the world work for 100% of humanity. Now, that comes from my teacher, Dr. Buckminster Fuller, who's Einstein's best student. But, you know, I've adopted it because Bucky said, you're my ambassador, so you go out and do this. And we're pulling off. So back to my aha moment, when I was divorced and a very painful experience, I wrote down 287 things I like in my ideal woman, everything I could think of, because, you know, women want a man that's tall, dark, and handsome. And, you know, you and I don't fit that totally. I mean, you got darker hair, but it's not, you're missing.
I had more hair when I started this field, yeah.
And then women, I want a hot, strong guy. Well, I didn't fit that category. Anyhow, I wrote down, we got to have the same values. We got to have spiritual stuff. She had to own her own business, do all this stuff. And if we had kids, our kids had to like each other and get along. And I never told her until after she was kind enough and loving enough to marry me. And it was a big wedding. I teach that when you write your goals, you never cross them out. I got the milk, got the eggs, got the butter. You write down victory in purple because that's God's highest color, the top of the rainbow, top of the electromagnetic spectrum. She was 267 out of 267.
Wow. That's just beautiful at so many levels. I mean, that's, and the purple visual. I've never heard that one before, you know, where you don't cross it out, you victory. Oh, that's so good.
You got
that's
a purple
so
pen in your hand, don't you?
Yeah. What?
What color is that pen you're holding? Ink. Looks purple to me.
Purple.
Isn't that purple?
Of course it is. Of course it is. Oh, I wish we were recording this. No, we are. We are.
You're funny.
I love it. All right. So
you're getting us a link to it. We'll share that.
Yes. So, all right. So I have 2 boys, one's 12 and one's 16. And I said, you're never going to believe who I'm interviewing today. And do you have any questions for them? And these are some questions that they came up with.
Good.
Okay. So I was trying to think, you know, with all those interviews, you're probably getting asked the same questions over and over. So I wanted to make this refreshing for you. So my 12-year-old asked this. He said, his name's Aiden. He says, are you satisfied with where you are now, or would you like to go even farther?
I guess I'll answer that first. And the answer is, I have inspirational discontent. Meaning that I think life's a highway and it's a lifetime journey and it's always under full-time construction, and we work on each other to make each other infinitely better. And thank God my parents gave me the freedom to do all that. I'm sort of a little bit self-made. I had great parents that loved me, and you know, they were sort of astounded. I mean, you know, not only did I have a paper out, and I sold more greeting cards than anyone at 9 years old, so I could buy my own bicycle and then deliver papers and make more money.
Wow.
And then at 16, I had a rock group, you know, called the Messengers, which she said is prophetic, because the Messengers, how do you do better than that?
It is.
And we made a fortune at 16 because the Beatles came out, and I called my best Danish little buddy, Gary Youngberg, and I said, we're starting a rock group. He said, what do you play? I said, nothing. He said, what do you play? Nothing. I said, we're qualified. Look at Ringo. And within 2 weeks, I know the next thing I'm going to tell you isn't believable, but somehow, because we had a guy who had a photographic memory for music, killer, Greg Simmons, our lead guitarist, taught us all this stuff. Gary got the fourth electric organ portable in America. I was playing bass, and what my skill was selling us into stuff. Killer taught me what's called runs and a bass, taught me the runs, and we started making money. And some nights we were making $5,000 a night, which is as much as my dad was making at the most per year. And so we made a lot of money so we could afford to go to college.
That's extraordinary. I mean, that's extraordinary. So, hey, so real quick, because Crystal, I want to hear from you too. Yes. Mark, tell me a time when you blew it, when you flopped, because you're so inspiring and so smart and so courageous. Maybe because you had to be, but I'm sure there's people that are like, well, I'm not like him. I don't know. I don't know how to do that stuff. And sometimes hearing how successful people are can make others feel small. So
I've heard that before, that, well, you're Mark Victor Hansen. No, I started out as nobody from nowhere, Waukegan, Illinois, not far from you in Indianapolis. I mean, outside of Chicago. I was in a little city of maybe 18,000 people, and all the stuff I had to take in high school, we had to take wood shop, we had to take mechanic. Hell, I knew I wasn't going to be that. I'm not good at the oily secrets. It's not my strength. My strength is orality, talking. Like I said, I open every subject with an open mouth. So it doesn't matter where you are. It matters what is your decision, where you're going to go. What is it you really want to be in your heart of hearts, your soul, that feeling nature? Because you got to live in the assumption of the wish fulfilled. In other words, I was a speaker before I became a speaker. I was a best-selling author before I became a best-selling author. When I started with the first book and sold 20,000 copies after going bankrupt, I lost $2 million in one day. So for 6 months, I slept in front of that other guy's bedroom. So I was in the pits, but I did a book called Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. I was earning about 75 grand a year as a speaker. And then they said, do you have that book, those stories in a book? I did Stand Up, Speak Out, and Win. At $10 each, I sold 20,000 from the platform in those little 4 meetings I was doing a day. You know, and I said, this is my bestseller. I didn't say it was a national bestseller. I didn't lie. I didn't say it was a New York Times bestseller. I didn't say bestseller in London or anywhere else. This is my bestseller. And everyone says, well, we autograph it. And the first day I came out with the book, I signed 37 autographs. I thought I died and gone to heaven. Yeah. So you start small and you grow tall.
Oh, so good. So good. I'm going to have to transcribe this. There's so many golden nuggets.
Send me a copy when you get done.
Of course I will. Yeah. I'm sure you'll turn it into a rocket ship and take us all to Mars. Cause that's so Crystal, what do you think about that then? You know, are you feel like you're like well, let me ask you something different. Okay. Do you ever feel like, well, this is what my, the second question. I'll ask you the second question from Aiden. Did you ever imagine in your wildest dreams that you would have accomplished what you've accomplished and where you are today?
You know, I didn't have a full picture of it. I think it was step by step for me wanting to go to the next level, but I was never content, a little bit like Mark, in that wherever I was, I had this feeling that there was something so much bigger, and I was always seeking that. And that started in high school, where I was like, I have already moved past high school. I got this. I need to move on. And even when I wasn't exactly clear where I was going, like my plan to marry my boyfriend 5 years older, that didn't work out, but it did take me to the next step.
It does.
Right? And so I had some pitfalls in between there, but I've always followed my heart. I think I've had this sort of feeling of a destiny for myself always, my entire life. You know, not always knowing exactly where it was leading, but it always leads me, as long as I keep moving ahead and keep asking the questions and never giving up, keep listening for the answers and not giving up. And that's, you know, and I feel like I do truly believe like God keeps leading me to my next best step. And I think for so many of us, that's it. If we're just willing to keep taking that next best step, you know, it's like, you don't have to, you can drive from here to California, you know, in the dark, but you know, your headlights let you see the next 200 feet in front of you. You don't need to see all the way to California to get there from Arizona. Right. Beautiful. And so if we can just trust that, that next step, that next little distance that we're going to go, knowing it's going to be okay. And, you know, honestly, you'll mess up. You'll make some decisions that you think, oh, how could I do something so stupid? It seemed like the right thing to do, but it's not lost. It's kind of all perfect. I really look at it as all perfect, because you're going to learn exactly what you needed to learn for the next iteration of your life. And so, right? You just have to be grateful for it all.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, you both are entrepreneurs at heart, right? And always thinking, how can I add more value, and always believing that there's something else. And, you know, you can come from fear or you can come from faith. And it's, you know, you both are walking in your faith just knowing and expecting that you're going to be guided. And we all go through situations that where we can look back and go, well, right. But you're right. It took you to the next level. You had to go through that experience to get to where you are, you know, whether it's because you had to have the learning or you had to have the humility or you had to have the breakthrough.
Yeah.
So good. Okay. This is what I call my quick fire real quick. What's your favorite way to relax?
With a great book, or I love relaxing out by our pool. We have an infinity edge pool and looking at the sunset, and it's just sort of this magical time for us.
We do that every evening. I'd add one other thing, and that is, if you're going to watch Netflix, watch positive stuff, some of the documentaries, but there's one now we just watched last night called The Healer, and it's so magnificent because it really is about our dear friend Paul Newman, who just did so many phenomenal things with his life.
Yeah. The Healer. Beautiful recommendation. All right. What's the most exciting adventure you've ever had?
Most exciting.
I'll go first.
Besides being married to Crystal.
Yeah, besides being married. Thank you. Because if I did that one wrong, not good points today. So I think it was climbing Machu Picchu. You know, back when I was starting to speak, a woman who's our dear friend Lindell and Steve Lair came up and said, you can climb Machu Picchu. And I didn't even know what it was, or that it was in Peru. And then I did the 6-day climb. And then at the end of the climb, you're exhausted because you don't get a bath, you don't get a shower, they're carrying food, and you know, you can fall off 19,000 feet and die pretty quick. And there's pumas coming out at you potentially. And I did it, and it was so exhilarating. And then I'm done. And Bob says, well, now we get to go up Huayna Picchu. I said, no, I don't want to do it anymore. She says, yeah, you got to do this. This is where the top is. And I go, holy cow. So that was really an aha moment.
That's a lot of pizza. Wow, that's pretty cool. Who's one of the coolest people, for either one of you, who's one of the coolest people you've ever got to meet?
Gosh, who's the coolest? Well, I was going to answer one of my top peak moments was touring through China. I mean, we had epic experiences in China, like going and speaking to thousands of people. It's an experience. They do everything so over the top, and you know, going to motivate people who really were so hungry because, you know, they're raised in this, you know, communistic environment where there's almost no individualism, and then we would light them up at these events. Thousands of people, they would be so excited and so loving and so willing to learn everything that we were teaching. And it was so surprising to me. One time we were there over my birthday, and they brought two 99 bunches of roses out for me for my birthday, and they had all surprised me. This is all a surprise, with a huge cake, and they signed this huge silk, authentic silk Chinese painting. They had somehow circulated it through the audience, and inside that painting, it said, I noticed a couple times it said, Jesus loves you. And I thought, oh my gosh, how sweet. Like they so want to be able to have faith and profess faith, but you know, that's what communism does. So I just wanted to throw that in because those were big, really epic moments when you're driving down freeways and we look and we're like, look at that billboard. Oh, that's us.
I mean, they had 20-foot billboards 20 miles out of town. We arrive in, and I never thought I really wanted bodyguards because, you know, you see them with Elvis Presley and that, but I never saw us as that. And all of a sudden we arrive at a 5-star hotel, and the people at the front counter are diving over because their assumption is if they touch me, they're going to get rich. And they're wonderful, but
does that work? Does that I'm gonna try.
Go home. You know.
That's extraordinary. I can't believe China let you, two of America's best entrepreneurs, they let you in.
You know, there was a period in China, and this was in the beginning, you know, there was a different leader before, and it was as that transition was happening to the current leader.
Yeah.
China was so much more open to allowing all of this in. It was a beautiful time really for China. And then suddenly they got new leadership. Bam. It's been contracting little by little. And it's so sad for our Chinese friends and our agent who lives there. We can't even really get a straight answer because we know if we text, everything's seen by the government. He can't answer us. We can't get on a Zoom call or Skype call and ever get a straight answer. The only time we can ever talk to him candidly is if he flies to Hawaii or flies here, we meet, you know.
Yeah, 3 years ago, they started closing down our seminars. We were paid,
good.
And they said, no, the government said nobody meets over 1,000 people. So that's why I said, I've been here for 22 years.
Yeah.
And then starting 3 years ago, they went, as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to be rough on this, but totally corrupt as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. That's unfortunate.
So,
but people that, they'll find a way. Human beings are resourceful. They'll find a way to you. They'll find a way to your book. They'll find a way to the stories. They'll somehow, some way. That's what we're going to cause, right? We're going to cause that somehow in some way. So, once you achieved a certain level of success, you made more money and you have the nice stuff and people know who you are, you've arrived, right? Was it what you expected?
I'll talk to that. I wrote a book called The Miracle of Tithing, and I said, everyone, the curve is learn, earn, and then return. And what we're saying is there's 4 types of giving. But the most important part, curious enough, is your thinking. There's 4 T's: thinking, time, talent, treasure, and then thankfulness. But thinking is the real gift. And right now we're co-chairman of an organization called Child Help, which is .org, and you can watch our videos and all that, but they've helped over 10.5 million kids get out of abuse, neglect, and sex trafficking, all of which we're wanting to get every kid to have a great childhood and be fully and magnificently loved and appreciated and grow, because we're all here to fulfill our destiny, like we've said throughout this show. And so every one of the reason I've sold more books than anybody else, to answer your question at the biggest level, is I'm the one who created tithing on every book, and I've had to drag the publisher, I had to drag Jack along, if you'll forgive me for being honest, because they said, well, if you give 10%, you have less. I said, no, it works like water. Water, when you don't give, is frozen, it's immobile. Water, when you give a little, is just a little bit ambient, but if an airplane had suddenly hit the water and didn't know what he was doing, it would have cracked the airplane apart, and it didn't, because he's a brilliant guy. But water, when it's steamed up and heated, you're giving 10%, but it becomes ambient. Like one drop of steam fills a whole room when the shower is warm. And so what I said is that, look, giving is part of who we are. Giving makes for a fulfilled, magnificent living.
Well, and back to that question about some of the greatest people we've ever met, I would say 2 of the greatest people I have ever met personally, I'll speak for myself, is Sarah O'Mara and Yvonne Fedderson. They're the 2 founders of Child Help. And these 2 women started off, their story is in our book, and it's a magnificent story. It's in the Ask God part, because they were very famous little actresses at the time, during World War II. And they were called, they did the USO tours.
Bob Hope.
Bob Hope. And so they were called to Japan, and this huge typhoon came in, and they just felt restless. For whatever reason, they wanted to get out of the hotel, and went down the street, took a long walk, and found these children, these Eurasian or American Asian children, they were mixed blood children, shivering on the sidewalk and with no clothes, no shoes. And they said, where's your mama? Where's your papa? And they're like, no mama san, no papa san. And they were left out to die. They were put out to die because the orphanages were so full, and they were so racist in Japan at that time. They wouldn't keep the mixed blood kids because they were from the soldiers, right? There was so much hatred. So they sneaked them back to their hotel and then said, okay, God, now what? They just said, we knew God didn't put us there to walk away from those kids. And so they sneaked them into the hotel, bathed them, put them in clothes that they had. The maids were sneaking food up to the room to help them. And then they're like, oh no, now we have to tell the general. Told the general, and he's like, you got to get rid of those kids right now. And they're like, we can't. We're not going to turn them back out. So they went to every orphanage in the city. Finally, they found one woman who would take these children, but she said, I have no doors, I have no windows, and no space for them. And they said, if we bring the troops back and put the doors and windows on and promise you, we will send you food forever for these kids every year and fund the food. Will you take them? And so she was very loving. She said yes. And that's how they started Orphanages International. They brought the troops. The next night, they passed around the hats to the troops, and they said, we're not taking no for an answer, because these might be your children. And so, and we're going to take you over there and help build this orphanage back, repair it. And that one thing led to another. And it's like God just kept expanding their call to where finally they built orphanages in Japan, Vietnam, and then Nancy Reagan approached them at one point and said, you've done such a beautiful job. They got an award. The Reagans gave them an award, and they said, you've done such a beautiful job on child abuse overseas. now we need you to look at the child abuse of this country.
Because it's invisible and a secret. Here's the first $25,000. And it makes me cry when she tells the story, and I've heard it hundreds of times.
It's an amazing story, but talk about asking the questions and following the answers so courageously. They gave up. Yvonne Fedderson was on every single television show, daytime show at the time. She dated Elvis Presley. She's so adorable. But they said, this was given to us, and they left all that behind. They started off being little starlets, and then they were brought to this other opportunity, and they followed the answer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Holy cow, Crystal. That was an awesome story. Wow, that was really good. So, Mark, she's giving you a run for your money, brother.
This is the third podcast today that said that.
I know.
The good thing is, I keep saying I'm enough, and sure enough, sooner or later I will be.
That's right. Thank God she's on your team already.
I'm speaking with my wife. We're in total cooperation, total love, and I just get choked up. She's a great storyteller and a brilliant woman.
Oh, you have a beautiful balance. You really balance each other beautifully. All right. So how can people get a hold of this Ask book?
We would like them to go to one of two places, because unfortunately the bookstores on Amazon.com or go to Walmart.com and get the book. Preferentially, it's easier and faster maybe at Amazon, because they're a little bit, they started out as a book business and wanted to do it. And then we want to do two bold asks. One is, once you get it, we want you to come askthebookclub.com, askthebookclub.com, and once a month we're going to answer any question you've got for anybody literally around the world. And then number two is that for those of you that can afford it, we really humbly and respectfully ask you to buy 100 books and give them out to those that are needy of them. And we've had universities buy them for every graduating student. We've had churches buy them for everybody. We've had corporations buy them. And that's, it's just something that we want to get everybody out there to have possibilities that they don't know, that this one thing can give them everything they want if they just learn to master the fine art of asking.
Yes, that's beautiful. So Amazon and Walmart, and yes, if you are a part of an organization or you can afford to buy multiple copies, but if you cannot, buy two, because the one that you get for yourself, you are not going to want to give away. And so, so get two, keep one for yourself. And then I think something that's so powerful, I've interviewed a lot of people, and you said something, Mark, that I have not heard before, that you have included tithing in every one of your books. And maybe that is exactly why you've been blessed to sell so many copies. And so people, go ahead.
Well, you know the line out of Malachi, I'll open up the windows of heaven and pour you such a rich reward, you will not be able to receive it. And I have been paid again and again and again. And it's the whole circle of value that she and I talk about in the book, that, you've got to give more capital value than you do in price value. And we all want to increase and expand the value. It's possible to do it for each and every one of us. And as we do it, we literally could make the world work for 100% of humanity.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. That is outstanding. Last question for you both. Is there something that you are sure of in life? Final thought.
Yeah, I'm sure God is real.
Amen to that, sister.
I'll
Sister Crystal, that's right.
I'm also totally sure that she loves me and that I love her and that we love our kids and our grandkids. I just got to say that we've got spectacular little grandkids. We've got one little one that is mimicking her. We have grand twins, and the female grand twin is named Maddie. And Maddie can dance, she can sing. When we have FaceTime, she always gets in front of the whole family and she thinks that she's the show. And yesterday her dad said, hey, it was a few days ago, Father's Day, I guess, and said, she's just a little ham bone like you, Grampy, and she's a show stealer. And I said, she steals every show we've ever been in, so you don't put a kid or an animal in anything you do.
Yeah.
Yep, that's exactly right. That's awesome. Well, God bless her and you and your whole family. And thank you so much for one of the best interviews ever. I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you for being, thank you for being such givers. right? The book is ask, but it's all about giving, because you're giving things, the solutions out of suffering. In life, we're going to have pain, but we can minimize the suffering and maximize the joy. And that's what ask is all about. And so thank you for writing this book. Thank you for getting it out there. And thank you for being on the program today.
Thank you. And thank your two boys and your wife for asking great questions too.
I will. Thank you so much. All right. You guys have a blessed day. For everybody else that has been listening and watching, wow, right? I mean, amazing content. So make sure you do two things. I've got two asks for you. One, go buy those 2 books, or 100 books, or 10 million books if you think like Mark, right? So go ahead and just go ahead and buy as many as you can, right? And then share this. Because there was so many good stories, so many practical takeaways. This wasn't just, airy, spiritual, lofty ideas. This was practical. You can do this, right? You can start with a question and transform your life. So make sure you share this, because it's going to empower you, and it's going to empower everyone that you share it with. So thanks so much for being a part of our program today. And make sure that you take what you've learned and use it to make your life mesmerizing. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you soon. Hey, would you like more free tips on how to be a mesmerizing leader? Then check out mesmerizingleadership.com, and also hang out with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Tim Shurr. Thanks so much, and make your day a sure success. Hey, it's Tim Shurr. Would you like to learn my best secrets for how to be mesmerizing? Then head over to www.survivingtothriving.me. That's www.survivingtothriving.me. I'll see you there.